Political parties and spell dynamics. This is Shores of Infinity. Let us have a look at political parties of some countries from a spell dynamics point of view. Very soon there will be elections in the United States of America, and most of the viewers of this channel are from there, so let's start here. In the US there are two major parties. Actually there are only two parties, all the others don't really count at all. So there are two major parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, and from a spell dynamics point of view they're both blue. So from a spell dynamics point of view it really doesn't matter if you vote one or the other, nothing much will change. Then there's a tiny green party which is actually mostly green, and a tiny libertarian party which is actually mostly orange, but they don't count. This type of a two-party system is very common in most countries that call themselves democracies, and it has a big advantage and a big disadvantage, of course. If you have the largest democracy on the planet right now is probably India, and they have a lot of parties, so they have the problem that they have to build very unstable coalitions, but there's more variety. In India, for example, the largest party is the Bharatiya Janata Party, which, as the name already suggests, is blue centered. The other big party, there are also two major parties, but they have to build coalitions with other parties. So the other major party is the Indian National Congress, and as the name suggests, it's centered mostly in blue. Of the tinier parties, the ones that got a few seats in the last elections, they're also centered in blue. Now let's have a look at Germany. The landscape in Germany is very different, partly also because of its history. So there are more parties. There used to be two big parties, one Labour Party called Social Democrats and one Conservative Party called the Christian Union. But they're also quite weak now, so they also have to build coalitions with smaller parties. And Germany boasts the biggest Green Party probably in the whole world, called the Green Party, which unfortunately is mostly centered in orange these days. Where the two big parties, the Conservative Christian Party is centered in blue, and the Labour Party is also centered in blue. There are two libertarian parties, one is centered in orange, one in blue. There's one nationalist party with right-wing tendencies, which is on the rise, which is centered in blue. And there's one left-wing party which is centered in green. But it's not very popular because it is the legacy of the old socialist East German Republic, and very Russia-friendly, so they will not and are not making large steps here. And then there's a plethora of 20 or 40 minor parties which don't really count, but many of them are centered in green. In Great Britain we also have two big parties, the Conservative and the Labour Party, which also in the last years lost some votes to populist parties. So the Conservative Party is of course centered in blue, and the Labour Party is centered in blue-orange. Then there are nationalist parties like the Scottish Party and the Irish Party and so on. They're mostly blue, although the Irish Party also has some green tendencies. The Liberal Party is centered mostly in orange, and those populist parties, after Brexit, they kind of disappeared again. But they used to be blue-reddish. Then let's have a look at France. There's the Renaissance Party, which is supposed to be liberal, but it's centered in blue. Then there's the Conservative Party, the Republicans, which is supposed to be liberal conservative, but they're centered in blue. And then there is the Populist Party, the National Rally, which is centered in blue, with some red tendencies. And then there's the Socialist Party, which is centered in orange. So let us have a look at a very forward modern country like Denmark, which is also very small, which is an advantage, and which has a large green population and even some yellow-centered population. So the largest party here is the Social Democrats, which is supposed to be mid-leftish, and it's centered in orange with blue tendencies. Then there's the Venstre Party, the Conservatives, which are of course centered in blue. And there's the Moderates Party, which is a liberal party centered mostly in orange. Then the Green Left, a green party which is not very big, unfortunately and surprisingly, which is mostly centered in orange with green tendencies. And there's another liberal party, the Liberal Alliance, which is also orange-blue. And then there's the Denmark Democrats, the Populist Party, which is of course centered in blue with some red tendencies. So I don't really have to go on here with other countries. It's always the same. There are usually two big parties, which are both centered in blue. Then there's some populist parties which are centered in blue towards red, and some liberal or green parties which are centered in orange towards green. All parties which try to be really green or even yellow are not popular at all. So even in countries with a large green population, people don't vote green for some weird reason. Often it's also strategic that you think, okay, I don't want to waste my vote. I have to vote for one of the two big parties. Then of course there are those who don't vote out of protest, or who do vote populist parties or fringe parties out of protest. But all in all, the big parties of almost all countries are mostly centered in blue. So you kind of have the choice between blue and blue. And what does blue mean politically? It means conservative. It means those parties want to keep things the way they are. Conservative means to conserve something. No change, don't rock the boat. Including all the negative aspects. Of course, there are positive aspects, the laws and the religion and whatever. You could see as positive, always sold as stability. Yeah? Let's make this country stable or great again or whatever. But also blue parties, they tend to support elitism. And to some degree also corruption. But corruption is possible in any first-year color. And then the other surprising thing is that those few green parties that do exist are often not really green, but more orange, which is already, of course, an improvement from a spiral dynamics point of view towards blue. And maybe they have to sell themselves as orange, otherwise they're too far ahead of the voters. Most voters used to vote blue. They cannot suddenly vote green. They have to do the orange step in between first. Because they see which is the doom of those parties which are already centered in green or even in yellow. They are a no topic. No one likes them. Very, very few people, and they have no influence whatsoever. So right now most countries struggle with making the shift from a mass blue to a mass orange. And they don't really do very well. Except maybe in Scandinavia, they're more orange already. Which from a blue point of view is very much forward. but from a second-tier point of view is already very backwards. And can even be more destructive than a blue party. So here you go with a Spell Dynamics political party overview. Thanks for listening. Give the video a thumbs up if this kind of topic interests you. Thank you for joining me as a patron. Thank you to all my patrons. Subscribe and see you soon.